let's talk about the books that I've read during the month of September. I was on a fantasy kick. I read some classic high fantasy one, I read some dark academia, a lot of cozy, a few other things obviously, but I was on a kick. Also, please ignore the background. I'm still reorganizing the shelves. I tried to like have a section. I'm going to zoom you in, you know? Everything's fine. Ignore it. It doesn't exist. Let's talk about the best book that I've read during the month of September, and it has to be Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. This was so good, and I was prepared for the worst because of the reviews I had seen, which honestly, I need to just not trust anyone at this point because what are you guys talking about? I rented actually in 2 different vlogs this month because I was so shocked by the response. First off, premise, right up my alley. This woman is absolutely obsessed with her education. She's studying magic and she needs that diploma. Unfortunately, she may be responsible for the death of her teacher and she has to go and save him in hell. And last second, her enemy, not really, or rival in school, also joins in. So they have to go together to hell to save her dear teacher. And as with every dark academia book ever, you do get insufferable characters, which again, they are willing to go to hell to get their diploma. That makes sense. And there's some academia, because again, in dark academia, you're going to get some academia and dark. So usually there's a murder. You get all of that in here. And I think that that's what I noticed with a lot of negative reviews that I had seen that I felt were unjustified. I think that they just don't like the genre, which is fine. But I feel like it's a common theme with her books in general. They tend to be dark academias. Even the Poppy War, like the first book, there's a little bit in the beginning. Either way, I personally really enjoyed it and I am running it up to a 5 a little bit out of spite because of said reviews. I don't want to repeat all the rants. I will link the vlogs if you want to see them, but I just don't understand the critiques. Obviously, some of them were valid. Like, I wouldn't even call her a favorite author, yet I have read and enjoyed all of her books. And I do agree that she's more of an academic over a writer. Sure, fair enough. And she tends to be heavy-handed. Again, sure, fair enough. But then I feel like some of the critiques I have seen, you wouldn't say that if she were a white man. Especially because I've seen recently someone call the Poppy War a romantasy. And like, are we being serious right now? Again, I don't want to go back to renting, but it's hard not to because it reminded me, if you have seen like The Name of the Wind, the follow-up, especially The Wise Man's Fear, if this had been written by a woman, this would have been called a romantasy. I mean, I would have had a lot of complaints. I already did, okay? But like there's a section, especially in the book, do not tell me that this wouldn't be labeled as a romantasy if a woman wrote it. The Poppy War. Anyway, again, a little bit out of spite, but I'm running it up to a 5. I enjoyed myself. If anything, I think that this is her most fun book. Like, yeah, obviously dark topics, but I feel like she has improved a little bit with her characterization. Like, there are a chapter backstory for both of the characters, and I think this was my favorite part of the book. I really liked it. Very readable. Yes, there are sections that are more heavy-handed when she's telling you that knowledge, but it's explained that even the character doesn't understand everything. That's kind of the point. So yeah, I loved it. I recommend it. If you enjoyed the books, don't even worry about it. Just try it. Let's go through my cozy fantasy because I have 4. I don't even know what happened to me, but I did really like The Keeper of Magical Things. This one is coming out October 14th, so very, very soon. Technically, the author has written another book in that same universe. I haven't read it yet, but I did check. My library has it. I will be reading it. I feel like this is exactly the kind of cozy fantasy I like. I feel like they can be a little hit and miss depending on if you are invested in the characters. And this time I totally was because it's a classic, like, go and help people in the village, make friends. Cozy vibes. That works for me. So the main character has a very useless magical power. She can talk to objects, but usually people that have magic, they can usually use their magic for other things, but she can't. So again, useless magical power. She's been at the guild for years and years and years, and she's about to be kicked out if she doesn't, you know, do something. And she's sent on this mission with this other woman who is much more powerful, but very icy, like think Ice Queen kind of vibes. And they are sent together to take care of magical objects in that small town. And again, people there don't really care for people with magic and they'll make friends. Things happen. There's a little bit of also sapphic romance in there. It's not heavy-handed and I just really like the vibes. It was very readable. Like I said, I will be reading the other book from the author and I would recommend it if that's your vibe. And I also learned that a group of cat is called a cloud. And I think about it a lot. Okay, I own a cloud of cat, which is cool. The other one I really enjoyed was A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. This was also very cute, very similar vibes as her first book. So cozy fantasy, found family vibes, a little bit of romance, nothing heavy-handed or too spicy. The main character when she's 15, the closest person to family to her dies, and she does this spell to bring her back, which is obviously not something that's allowed. So they kick her out, remove her magical powers, and she's now taking care of this inn, which is magical. It tends to bring people that are lost and need family. So you get the cute vibes there. It's very inclusive, very cute. But then, you know, things happen that get a little darker. They have to go and see if maybe she can get her magic back. The ending was a little sickly sweet, but it worked for the vibes of the book. So if that's your thing, I would definitely recommend it. I'm going to round it up to a 4. The next one was unfortunately a disappointment for me. This is The Late Night Witches. I had really enjoyed this other series by the author, so I was looking forward to this one, and unfortunately it just didn't do it for me. The main character is a mother of 3. She's feeling very lost. Basically her husband has abandoned them. She just hasn't really accepted it yet. She has twin sons and then a teenage daughter, and she just doesn't know who she is at this point. She also has a younger sister who is wild and free and kind of witchy vibes. She can tell these stories, and they tend to happen. And then vampires show up in town and they have to survive. She is part of a prophecy, and if she dies, basically, you know, evil will take over the world. But she spends literally 95% of the book not believing in herself enough for it to actually happen. And I'm all for people, you know, feeling lost and then finding themselves and whatever, but she just doesn't. I found it so frustrating when you're like literally like at the end of the book and she's still like, I don't believe in myself enough to use my magic. Girl, stand up. Like, please, there's a hot neighbor that's waiting just for you. There is these strong powers that could be yours and you're just, you know. Anyway, I wanted to love it, but I'm going to give it a 2-star. The last cozy fantasy I finished is actually an arc. It's a book coming out in November, and it is Brigands and Bread Knives. So this is the sequel to Legends and Lattes. I feel like that series has been going around, cute cozy fantasy series. I will admit it's my fault. I think I'm just not the right audience for this book because I thought it was going to be part of the town that is in Legends and Lattes, and no, you're following the person that was responsible for the bookshop in the prequel, so you do have to have read both books, and they kind of accidentally go on an adventure, which I didn't really want. I wanted to see the other characters. I really like them. So again, it's definitely on me because I still like the characters. I still like the humor, the writing in general. I just was not emotionally invested at all in that storyline. So if you did really care for them in the prequel, I would continue. Basically, the bookshop owner from the prequel goes to town of Legends and Lattes to open their bookshop right next to Viv and her coffee shop, and she gets drunk and falls asleep in someone else's wagon, and yeah, reluctantly stuck on an adventure and will find themselves. And again, not a bad story, just not what I expected, so I'm going to give it a 3-star. One that really surprised me was 1-star Romance. I went into it expecting just something a little popcorn, something fun. I didn't even actually pick this, the jar did, so I had no choice but to actually read it. And I made the mistake of looking quickly at the rating on Goodreads, which you can't always trust it. I feel like some books are like super highly rated and you end up hating them. And then some books are really lowly rated and I love them. Anyway, I feel like it's a little bit the case with this one. The main character, the story starts when she's 24, her best friend is turning 25, and she's dating this man that she thinks is kind of beneath her, kind of ridiculous. And it turns out that at the party, he proposes and she expects her to say no because again, he's ridiculous. And she says yes, and she's very happy about it. And then the story tends to skip a little bit because you're going to be following the characters for almost a decade, but she becomes a writer by the second part, and that's what the story comes from, the title. The best friend of that ridiculous boyfriend, now fiance, reads her book and he rates it 1 star, and she finds out at the wedding, and you get the backstory at one point, you get the reasoning, and I was surprised because I was like, you know what, he's very much right, I approve, which I was not expecting, so I was pleasantly surprised. But yes, you do need to be warned that the main character is unlikable, big quotes there, because I know some people really don't like following stories that they can't identify themselves as the main female character, so heads up. But people learn, and that's kind of the point of the story. Over, you know, almost that decade, they will make mistakes, they have to learn lessons, and life humbles you at one point, and that's kind of what happens to everyone in here. And I got really emotionally invested and I did enjoy it, so I decided to run it up to a 4. This was cute, but deeper than I expected in a good way. The next one was a long time coming. King of Scars had been on my shelf for years. I read the Six of Crow duology after reading the Grisha trilogy, and I read those when I first started doing Booktube because they were all the rage. And then this duology came out and I felt like I heard nobody talk about it, and maybe now I know why. Don't get me wrong, I love Nikolai as a character, although we don't get that much of him in here, I feel like. But without spoiling anything, since this is like the 6th book in this series, if you read them all in publishing order, which I recommend, because there's always debates about it. Whatever. Long story short, I just felt very meh about the whole story. I think this is how, in general, I feel about this series, because I don't own any of the other books. I try to keep my favorites, you know, they're cute in that background now, and I didn't feel the need to keep any of them because I love the world, I love the magic system, I like the characters, but I don't care for actual stories. And that's been the case for literally every single book at this point. So 6 books that I feel the same. So I think I'm done. I'm not going to continue this series. I'm going to give it 3 because, again, there's nothing wrong with it. The ending was good, but I just don't really care. I did finish one nonfiction, which was Medical Bondage, Race, Gender, and the Origins of American Gynecology. I thought this was a really interesting take on the topic because instead of focusing on, for example, Dr. Sims, which, if you don't know, he's labeled as the father of gynecology, she decides to focus on the women that he tortured, did his research with or on. And obviously we don't have a lot of information on these women, obviously. But she does her best to try and humanize them, which was really interesting. Basically, Black enslaved women that he, again, not only tested on, but also they worked with him. And I thought the whole time it was really shocking to see those two opposite ideas. The fact that, oh, they're inferior because they're Black women, yet we're going to use that knowledge to save and help white women. Or they're inferior, yet they are trained to do like nursing. Like, that's a lot of knowledge. Like, it just made no sense, which, I mean, racism makes no sense. So I would recommend this book. There's also one chapter is about immigrant Irish women, which, again, I didn't know that part at all. I feel like I've learned none of these things in school. So this was really interesting. Short. I could not read this quickly, though, because it's very heavy, but I enjoyed it. I'm still in the middle of reading this one, so one day everyone will have always been against this. So I'm going to wait to review it because I have not made a lot of progress. I don't think I'm going to be finishing The Eyes Are the Best Part. Listen, I am now fully, okay, I did my cozy fantasy, now I'm fully in my like horror mystery thriller kind of books. That's what's going to be happening all October. But this was the first one and I think I'm done with it. I'm 21% into it. It just, so far it just feels a lot more family drama, which is fine, but it's just not what I expected. So you're following this Korean American family and the husband leaves. So you just have the 2 daughters and their mother, and you have, yes, the effects of that happening on them, but also eventually the mother deciding to date this man, George. And that's basically where I was at that point, like 21% into it. That's basically what happens. And honestly, I wish the worst to George. I wanted to read this book because I had heard it was like female rage, female revenge kind of story. So I'm hoping, like I said, that the worst is going to be happening to George. But I just can't keep going. I'm 21% into it. I think I'm done. Unless you tried to convince me, but I think the ratings were fairly low. I wanted to read this last year and I never got around to it. And yeah, I think I'm just going to pick up something else so I don't get into a reading slump. As you can see, it wasn't a bad month. 8 books finished, 1 that I'm DNFing. And if you want to see what I'm planning on reading in October, I'll put the TBR on the screen. And if you want to hear me rant about Catabasis even more, I'll put my latest reading vlog on the topic and I will see you there. Bye.